Hey, and welcome to the Edges Online SAT Prep course, which I'm sure you're really excited about getting started with. But before we get started and you and I get to know each other really well, because I'll be teaching you throughout the entire course, I wanted to go over a couple of concepts so that you can maximize this course to get your score to where you need it to be. So the first thing that we need to sort of chat about are your prior scores. Now, you might not have ever taken an SAT or a PSAT or even a practice exam before, and this might be your first intro into the wonderful world of SAT prep, and that is totally fine. In that case, unless you know that you're super awesome at all standardized tests, you're going to want to start at the basic level for all three sections. If you're starting at the basic level and you are just like, wow, this is way too easy for me, you can then move yourself up to intermediate or advanced as you like. But in general, you want to start with basic and see if you need to move up from there. For everyone else who's taken a prior test, what you're going to want to do is develop a strategy for approaching your test prep so that you can do it in the most efficient way possible. Because I know, just as I felt when I was in high school, this is probably the last thing that you want to be doing. So, prior scores. If you have your PSAT score or a prior SAT score, what you're going to want to do is figure out what range you're in. So if you're below a 500, that means that you're in the basic category. So if you're below 500 in the reading, that means you're going to start in the basic section. Anything in the 500s is an intermediate, and above 600 is going to be advanced. So those are just going to be your general sections based on spans of scores. So if you're in the below 500, you're going to want to do the basic section during the course. So make sure that you are mastering every single fundamental that you need for that specific section. Let's say then that you got a 530 on your practice math section. That means that you're probably at an intermediate level, so you can start at intermediate in math. But let's say that you totally rocked the writing section and you ended up with a 680 on that. Clearly, you're more advanced. So you don't need to waste your time on the basic and the intermediate sections. You can move right up to the advanced and just hone in on those last really critical grammar improvements that you need to make in order to get your score into the 700s. Now, if you want an even more customized approach to this course, what we recommend is what we call a strategy session. And a strategy session can be done in person if you happen to be located in one of the areas where we have Edge tutors, or we can do a strategy session over Skype with you from anywhere in the world. And what we do with you for a strategy session is we'll analyze your prior scores and we'll discuss the exact components of the test that you need to work on. So we're not just going to say start with basic for all of critical reading and start with intermediate for all of math. We're going to get so specific and we're going to say you're going to need to do an intermediate percents section. You're going to need to start with basic on ratios. You need to breeze right up to advanced on your geometry section, and your whole study plan will be mapped out for you based on the scores you start out with, the scores you need, and the amount of time you have to study. So if you want the most customized approach to this course, you're going to want to start with the strategy session, which is an hour to 90 minutes with an expert Edge instructor or myself to really go through your prior scores and talk with you about some of your college goals. You absolutely do not need to do that, but it's definitely recommended if you want something more customized. Then, in terms of using the course, like we said, the course is broken down into very specific sections. First, we divide the SAT into its 3 sections. We have the reading, we have the math, and we have the writing. Then each one of those sections is then broken down further into different parts. So for example, the reading is broken down into sentence completions and passages. Math is then broken down into arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and advanced algebra. What we then do for each of those is we break them down even further. So for example, arithmetic has percents, ratios, statistics, probability. And then even further, what we do, which is really different from other courses, is we break each different subsection down by level. So you might have a basic percent, an intermediate percent, and an advanced percent. Based on where your prior scores placed you, that's where you want to start. And when you know where you want to start, what you want to do is you're going to watch the drill, which is going to be me teaching you a specific concept for each specific part of the test. Then, once you watch me teaching you that lesson, you'll complete a short drill between 5 and 10 questions that are going to test your knowledge of how well you absorbed what I taught you. And then it'll tell you which questions you got wrong and which questions you got correct. You can always mark a question for review. So let's say you get a question right, but you're not really sure why you got it right because you just totally guessed. That's totally fine, because after you find out your results of the drill, you can click on any of those individual questions for a video explanation of that particular question with a demonstration of how you should be using the techniques on that particular question. Each of those drills can be completed a total of 3 times throughout your course subscription. So a great idea for you throughout your course is to get yourself a little wrong question journal. Your wrong question journal should be kept with you while you're taking your course, so that as you're learning new concepts, if they're totally new to you and you have to memorize them, you should write them in your wrong question journal, or if you prefer note cards are also great. And any concept that you're missing that you didn't know before that you want to remember, you want to keep in one place, either in a set of note cards or in your wrong question journal. So you can have a very concise and condensed study guide for the week right before the test that's totally customized for the things that you need to remember. Obviously, we know that you're not going to need to review every single thing in the course the week before the test. So if you're using this journal during the entire subscription to this course, you're going to have a really, really awesome way to review only the key things that you are having trouble with. Then, in terms of a timeline for preparing, we have 3 different subscriptions for this course. There's the 3-month, the 6-month, and the 9-month. Depending upon the type of student you are, you're probably not going to want to sit at the computer for 4 hours doing SAT prep. It's also not really effective, because what you want to remember is that you're going to remember the first thing that you studied and the last thing that you studied really well. And that middle portion of what you studied is a total gray area that kind of gets lost somewhere. I'm not sure where it went. But if you think about any time you've studied, the middle portion of what you studied is probably going to be the most easily forgotten. So based on your timeline, you should try to set aside at least one concept a night. So if you do percents, that in and of itself should only take you 15 minutes. But if you focus in specifically on percents for the night and understand it and really absorb it, and then the next day move on to maybe ratios, it's a gradual way of learning, and it's going to take you right up until your exam. And you should really plan on doing this course leading up to your exam date. You can always repeat it. So if you have a 9-month subscription, you might want to be taking the test 3 times. So it might take you 3 months to do it the first time, another 3 months to do it the second, and then the last 3 months to do it for your third exam. So depending upon when you're taking your test, that's when you want to start your course. And then the last thing I want to talk about is practice tests. So obviously this course is super comprehensive and it includes things that you need to know for the entire test. It literally has everything you need to know in order to get your score to where it needs to be on the SAT. However, once you finish this course, you're going to want to incorporate practice tests because those are going to get you into test-taking mode. The SAT is super long. It's 3 hours and 45 minutes. So unless you force yourself to sit there for a full 3 hour and 45 minutes, at least a couple of times before the test, you're going to be in total shock when you get there. So the reason why we don't include practice tests in our course is because we believe that you should be taking real practice tests. And the only place that you're going to get real practice tests are from the College Board. The College Board is the group that writes the SAT. And there's 2 places that you can get College Board real SATs. The first place that you can get the real SATs is in their book, which is called the Official SAT Study Guide. Now that book has 10 real SATs, most of which have been used in past years. This is an awesome resource for you because you can go through all 10 tests before your exam, or at least we recommend you to try to get through 3 or 4 and go through them and see how you do applying all of the EDGE techniques to those tests. One of the issues with this book, though, is that it does not include answer explanations. It includes an answer key and it includes a scoring table so you'll know your score on those tests, but you won't have answer explanations. However, what we have are video explanations for all of the questions in that book. So if you buy that book and you want to go through your answers that you got wrong, you can either purchase the entire guide to all 10 tests, or your course comes with the answer explanations for the first 3 tests. And every Tuesday on our YouTube channel, we do a series called Test Prep Tuesdays, where I go through a different College Board book question and explain it using EDGE techniques. So there's different methods for you to get all of the answer explanations for that book. If you don't want to purchase a book, at the very least you should take the College Board's free practice exam, which is on their website. And that includes answers, and you can get your practice score as well. If you finish the College Board's official SAT study guide book and you've done all 10 tests and you're super motivated and you want even more tests, you can then enroll in the College Board's online course, which includes an additional 8 tests for you to take online, which includes answers and explanations. But I really think that you can get any score that you want, including a perfect score, by just going through the 10 tests in the official guide. So now you're going to want to get started on your SAT course, and based on the area that you have the lowest prior score, that's where you're going to want to get started because that's where you need the most help. So I'll see you in our lessons in both the reading, the math, and the writing.